All right. Once again, good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here at the evening. Let's get going. So, before we get into today's session, I just want to quickly check how did yesterday go. So, yesterday I started off with a secret or a tip, right? You guys remember what did I open with? I said, do not just study. Okay, do not just study for marks, but for understanding and purpose. That was yesterday's tip. So today's tip from my side is trust. Okay, you have to trust three people for you to be successful. Okay, who are the three people? Your parents, your staff, your lecturers, and the third is your own self. Okay, keep that in mind. All these three people are the only selfless people who's going to go with you all through your career or your life. I'm not saying others don't help, but these three will always go with you in every single walk of your life. Anything that you do, all these three will help you to take decisions selflessly with no selfishness. All right. So third one is very important. Yourself. You gotta trust yourself. You always should have the can attitude. Can means I can. I can do it. Right. Never ever ask, can I do it? I can do it. Okay. All right. So that's the tip for today. So keep that in mind. Keep saying all the time, I can, and trust all these three people. Keep going, and you will be successful. All right. All right. Slowly pitching into the subject. If you slowly remember what we talked yesterday, we talked about database, how the data storage has evolved. We talked about different forms, how the data storage evolved, and how DBMS plays a part in data storage, right? Okay, today let's go a little bit deeper. Um, today's subject is the content of today's session is important. I would say very important from an exam point of view for you. Okay, I went through your some of your question papers, and as I go through my lecture, some points I will try to stress that this is important for the exam. Okay, so those things you can concentrate from the exam point of view. One such, what I'm going to talk today is about applications of database. Okay, we talked very little bit yesterday, the applications of database. So let's talk a little bit more because there are questions in the exam about what are the applications of database. Okay, so let me tell you a small story and then that should help you to remember what are the applications. Okay, let's look at what you do on a day-to-day basis. Okay, for example, you get up in the morning, what do you do every day? Okay, so you get up, first thing you do is probably check your mobile phone. That's what I think most of us do this world, in today's world. Get up first thing, check your mobile phones. Okay, reply to all your messages, good morning, good evening, good night, whatnot. Okay, and then after you check your mobile, you realize, oh, there is no charge in your phone. A lot of times you run out of charge. So you realize you don't have charge in your phone, and then you kind of put your phone to charge. Okay, and then you go get ready. Let's say you go take a shower, and then get ready to go to your college. Right? This is the first part of the story. Let me stop here for a second. So what all did we do here? Okay, as part of the story. First thing I said, you're checking your mobile phone, right? That the mobile phone comes under your telecommunication industry. I'm talking from a very organization level, from an industry level. So telecommunication comes under your, is the industry. Your mobile phone comes under your telecom industry. So telecommunication is a very broad industry where they store a large amount of data. What do they store? Maybe your customer ID, your customer number, name, your phone number, what calls you make. You know that, right? They track all the phone calls, meaning they send you a bill saying these are the phone calls that you made, on what time, what date, etc. So telecom industry uses that. And then what was the next I said? So after you check your mobile phones, I said you put it to charge, right? Charging is done by what? Electricity. So the electricity department again stores a large amount of data. That is again where database is used, right? Makes sense? Um, Anytime, guys, again, this is a ground rule I keep repeating. Anytime you want to stop me, you want me to repeat something, something is not clear. I got my chat open on the side, so I can always monitor. If you have anything to ask, um, put it on the chat. Okay, so keep going. So electricity department. So that's another place where large amount of data is stored and used. That is where DBMS is used as well. Then I said, you go take a shower. Water department comes into play. Same thing. Water department stores a lot of data there. They kind of keep track of the customer number, name, address, your opening meter reading, your closing meter reading, then they calculate your bill amount, and then they send you a bill home, right? So water department uses database. And then I said you get ready to go to the college. So you come into your college, the college maintains a whole database about your name, number, marks, your address, your hobbies, whatnot, right? I showed you a sample example yesterday about the college database. A simple example, how they store your number, name, date of birth, etc., right? So this, again, if I can run through the examples one more time. So it's basically, I said, you wake up, you check your mobile. Mobile is under telecom industry. Telecommunication industry uses database. That's one of the applications. Then you put your phone to charge. Electricity department comes into play. They use database. Take a shower, water department. Then you come to the college. The college uses database. Good so far? Okay. So these are four major applications. You should never forget this. I don't want you to go through the textbook, read, and try to memorize the terminology. So the story should help you to remember where all databases apply. And this is one of the important questions. What are the different applications of database? Okay. So let me continue the second part of the story. So you are in the college. Let's assume you finish college. You probably take up a, let's say, professional course. You become a profession. You take up a profession. Let's assume you did your engineering. Let's say you finish your engineering. You get placed. You get a job in your dream company. Use the term dream company. Everybody has some dream company that you want to work for. Google, Amazon, Infosys, whatnot. Big companies. So as you get placed in our dream company, who's the first person to contact you saying that, give me a sec, saying that you're selected? The HR. The HR is the first person to send you a letter home or email home or give you a phone call saying you're selected, and they send you an offer letter. So the HR sends you an offer letter. You're very happy. You're getting ready to go join the company. So let's assume you stay in Mysore. The job is, let's say, in Bangalore, Chennai, wherever it is. So on the day of your job, first day, you are traveling. So you travel to your job the first day, and you take up the job, you join the job, things go fine. First salary, that's very important. Nobody will forget their first salary. That's when you're earning on your own, the first salary from your own earnings, right? The first salary. Where does the first salary go into? It goes into your bank, right? Remember the term bank. Okay, so you keep working and working, you make more money, and then you probably want to go into stock market. You want to buy some stocks because you want to see how stock market works. So you put some money in stock market, things go fine, and as you keep working and working, maybe you get an opportunity to go on site. You work for a major IT industry, you get an opportunity to go on site. So one fine day they say, okay, look, you got an opportunity to go on site, and you fly on site. Okay, so I'll stop the story here for some time. So there are few places that I talked through in the story. Again, uses database. I started off saying the first person to communicate to you saying that you got selected is the HR. The HR uses database basically to store all the information about employees, all the employee data. The employee database is very huge. They store all the employee related information and employee name, number, address, phone number, whatnot. All the details about the employee. So the human resource department in an organization uses database. Then I said, you get your first salary. First salary goes, I said, you travel to your work location, sorry. So how do you travel? Either by rail, by airplane, whatever modes of transport. So your railway industry, your basically I would say transport industry. Your railways, your roadways, airlines use database. Make sense? You book your tickets. You sit at home or use your mobile phone. You book your tickets, and you fly. So the transport industry uses database. All right. Then you go. I said you get your first salary. The first salary comes into your bank. Banking uses database. All right. And I said, as you make more money, you are interested in putting in the stock market. Stock markets use securities, and stock market they use database. Okay. And I said, you fly on site. You take your flight. The airlines industry they use database, right? So these are some of the examples I went through. So if you remember the story, if there is a question on what are the applications of database, you should be able to remember the story and tell all the stories here. Okay, telecom, electricity, water, college, banking, HR, finance, transport, um, airlines, right? Makes sense? Makes it easy? All right, with that, let's keep moving forward. I'm going to talk a little bit about data today. So we've been talking about data and database. So what is data? I'm going to take a pause and give somebody a chance if you guys want to speak up. So there are two different words here I'm going to use, data and information. Sounds similar. In today's world, there are a lot of research on data science, data engineering, plus information technology. It used to be an IT. They used to call a general term called IT. IT is a broad term. And within that, if you drill down, the base for IT is data. So does anybody want to take a guess? What is data? Or give me an example for a data. If somebody else want to give me an example for what is information. So Nagesh texts me saying data is numerical information. Okay, so data has information in it. Okay, anybody else? Excuse me. Okay, so let me take it. So data is nothing but, Nagesh, thanks for that response. I appreciate. I always like when people respond to my question. So Gahan responds, data is not information is apt. Data is not apt, information is apt. Okay. Yes. Vivek, thanks. Vivek says data is raw form of information. Exactly. So that's where I'm going to. So data is exactly like you said, a raw form of information. Example, like Gahan said, if I just say 20, that's data. It is a data, not it's telling me something. It's 20. 20 is some fact. It's a fact or a number or a figure, but it's not telling me what is that 20. Is it are you trying to say it's 20 degrees Celsius outside, or is my coffee is 20 degrees hot, or is it like you said 20 apples? What is it? I don't know. But when you make it a little more subjective, saying 20 apples, I have 20 apples, my coffee is 40 degrees hot, the temperature is 40 degrees Celsius, it makes information. Okay, so this you have to remember. Sometimes there are questions in the exam about differentiate between data and information. So data is nothing but a fact, a figure, or a statistics. It could be a statistics. Somebody can tell me 10, 12, 14, 16. I don't know what is 10, 12, 14, 16. But then when I look at it, it could be a statistic. Somebody's trying to explain to me yesterday's temperature was this, and today is this. So that could be that number. Okay. So remember these three terms. Data is nothing but a fact. Fact is nothing but a truth. A fact, a figure is nothing but a number or a statistics, okay? Whereas information is a qualified data, meaning you're adding some information saying, like I said, for example, my coffee is 40 degrees hot. So a fact along with some qualified information makes up information. So basically data is a raw form and information is qualified data. Make sense? All right. So sometimes you have questions about can you differentiate between data and information? So I want you to be able to explain that. Or your textbook says information is processed data. They process your data to make information. Okay, so your information is processed data. All right, so the next topic I want to touch a little bit is about evolution of database. Okay, um, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. How data was stored in olden days. So we talked about data was stored in terms of paper forms, in records, or notebooks. Like I said, for example, I want to say maybe like 20 years back, let's say, when I walk into the bank, they used to write ledgers. All your data is on notebooks. When you go to the bank, they go find your ledger and start writing. If you want to deposit some money, they take that ledger, start writing. Okay, so and so MarieDass came into the bank. This is account number. They open my page. They go into my account number. This is true. Okay, I'm not kidding. This used to be the case. They take the ledger. They with my account number. They take up the notebook. They go to the page, and then they start writing. Okay, I came on this date. They don't put timestamp from what I remember. They put the date and they say on this date you deposited this much money or you withdraw this much money, and then they do the total balance, everything. And the problem with that is it is very cumbersome. If I can put it in one line, it is very cumbersome. It needs, first thing, it needs a lot of labor because you need a lot of people. If there are 100 people in the bank, you need 100 people or 50 people at least to look at it. So the labor cost is high. You need more paper to store your data. And then the speed is less, not like your computers. So what we're going to compare against is when the form of data storage moved over to electronic or computerized forms. Okay, when the data is computerized or data storage is computerized, uh, all these things have been overcome. I mean, there's always drawbacks. Nothing comes with full perfection and full advantages. There are always advantages and disadvantages. I always say, everything comes with its own pros and cons. Everything comes with its own advantage and disadvantage. So if I could share my screen, let's do this. Okay, I'm assuming I'm sharing my screen. If you don't, just let me know. Okay, so these are the two forms. Again, this is another important question, and I've seen your question papers. There are questions about data processing types. What are the different types of data processing? Or they talk about the evolution of database. Okay, when the database evolved, how is the data being stored? So these are the two very broad forms. I'm not going to get into the types of database here, but this is the very broad forms. Okay, manual and computerized data processing types. Manual is basically the paper form that I talked about, and computerized is what I'm. Where is my? Okay, so computerized are electronic forms of data storage. Okay, so these are the factors that we use to measure and compare. Okay, whatever I have highlighted, you might want to note down the highlighted bold keywords, and always try to highlight. I'm sure these are some of the tips that you already been given, or you should always try to highlight and remember the keywords. Okay, so some of the characteristics or keywords that we're going to use to compare the data processing types are volume, speed, accuracy, cost, storage, and paper, or the volume of paper. Okay, so the first one is volume of data processed. What is mean by volume of data processed? For example, I said when you go into a bank, they started using ledgers. How much of paper is used? You know, I maintain the bank, I maintain an account in the bank. After let's say 10 years of the book is done, what are they going to do with it? Or even after 2 years or 3 years, they cannot throw it off, because what if I go back to them and say, there is mistake, can you correct it, or can you check, I deposited, let's say 40,000, you only wrote it 4,000, can you check? So they need to have a record of it. So they cannot throw it off. In some of the industries, like, I have exposure to some of the healthcare industries. The healthcare industries have to store data for 7 years. They cannot throw the data away before 7 years. If you go to a doctor and take a treatment, you're being sent a bill, let's say, that does not end there. The company, your insurance company, has to maintain your data for a minimum of 7 years. I can go back and say, I need to check something is wrong with my bill after 7 years. Okay, so they cannot throw away data. So same way here, in the manual form in the banking industry, they cannot throw away. So they got to maintain. So the volume of data processed. So what I mean by volume of data processed is, um, how much of data is being processed in, let's say, in unit time. When I mean by unit time, let's say an hour. So if there are 100 people inside the bank, how many people can they service in an hour? I have literally experienced sitting in 1 hour just for a simple request. So the volume of data that's processed in 1 hour is very, very less in manual form. So I'm going to say here, the volume of data processed is less in manual form, whereas in computerized form, I'm going to use the term very large. Okay, the volume of data processed in unit time. Okay, if you want to use the word in unit time, the volume of data processed in unit time. Okay, next, the processing speed. Like I said, the speed at which they do the work, manual. You go into the bank, they say, okay, I'm going for a coffee break. I'll come back in 15 minutes. Happens, right? The processing speed, or it's human, so it's supposed to be slow. Whereas in computerized, the processing speed is very high. The data is processed so fast. If you want to get a report or a statement saying, what did I do for the last 10 days? It generates in less than 10 seconds, right? So it's very fast. Accuracy is very important. See, in the data science world, the word accuracy is very important. How accurate are we reporting things? Okay. Especially, when you guys take up professional courses, the cutoffs. The cutoffs are, they go in second, third precision, right? People get selected or get, not selected in by cutoffs of like 0.01 percentage, right? So you need a lot of accuracy in in computerized form. You need a lot of accuracy in the data science world. So if you go in the manual world, there is a lot more chances of error, right? This has happened again. I've seen in many cases when people make entries manually, they make mistakes. So accuracy is limited. I will use the term limited. I will not say there is no accuracy. I don't want to discount the effort that a human puts in. There is accuracy, but it is limited. Whereas in computerized world, I should use 100% accurate, right? 100% accurate, because it's done by the system. The system does what you say, right? If a system makes a mistake, that is because you told the system to make mistake, right? The system doesn't make mistake on its own, right? A lot of times people come to me and say, I wrote my program very correct, but it's not doing what I wanted. They always blame, it's the error in the program. I wrote everything perfectly correct. I always tell them, I believe the system rather than you. I always tell them, don't take it as offense, but I believe the system rather than you. So I'm sure you made a mistake somewhere, either with the syntax, either with the logic, something you made a mistake, because the system just does what you're saying. So I'm going to use 100% accurate unless you make a mistake. Labor cost. That's again another important. Labor cost. The cost of doing a certain work in manual form is by humans. So the cost is very high here. So the cost is very high. Whereas here, comparatively less. I'm using the term comparatively less because sometimes for you to get the work done via a computer might be expensive. And for you to realize the benefit, it might take time. Okay. You might take away 5 people who are doing the work manually in a bank and replace with a computer, but you might pay more to get that started because you need to pay for the hardware and the software and the networking cost, right? You need to buy computers, you need to set up your networks, you need to set up your database, you need to buy your softwares, and on top of it, you still need some human to operate it, right? So in the immediate near future, you don't realize the benefit, but in the long term, as you go down, maybe after a year or two, you realize the benefit. That's why I'm saying comparatively less. Because a lot of times people come to me with estimate comparison saying, look, if you want to do this by human, this is the cost. If you want to do this work by automation or computerized form, it's going to be this. I tell them, down the line, you see the benefit. Okay. So the labor cost in the computerized form is very less. Storage medium, meaning where is the data stored? In the manual form, where is the data stored? In paper, right? Whereas in computerized, I will say electronic. I would also say secondary storage. I'm sure you know what a secondary storage is. Primary storage is your RAM, your main memory. Secondary storage is where all your external external devices like hard drive or your pen drives, disk, whatever it is. Okay, and the quantity of paper used in manual form is large, right? Because everything is on paper in manual form, whereas in computerized form, limited. Why I say limited? I'm not saying zero. I'm saying limited because if you want to print a report, for example, we talked about electricity industry, we talked about telecom. How does, for example, Airtel or Aircel, how do they send a bill? They send you a printed bill. So that's basically have to be printed on a paper. You need to generate a report. It has to be printed. So it still needs paper, but the amount of paper use is limited. Okay. I'm going to take a pause, give you guys a chance to speak up. Okay. Um, where do I go to my screen? Anybody has questions? No questions? Nothing? Everything looks good so far? Okay. All right. Just quickly a second. I'm gonna check. Where is my? Okay, here is my chat window. Okay. Cool. All right. So Achita Narayan said no doubt. So looks good. Guy says no. So I'll keep going. All right. So let's get back. Again, if you feel if I'm a little slower for you, let me know so I can speed up. I don't want to really go fast and you to lose. Rather, I would go slower and you get everything that I speak. But if it's making you to lose your interest, you're gonna say, you know what, we know all this, you're boring, so I can keep going. I'm trying to achieve two things here. One, my primary intent is to make you understand DBMS. Okay. I always try to create a spark somewhere. So you guys start thinking, maybe this is something that I want to pursue in future. Right, that's my thought because we'll take a 2-minute break. So a lot of times we don't know how to go towards, right? That's what I was telling yesterday. I had the challenge, there was not a proper guidance. that somebody can tell me, go do this, or what should I choose? And that becomes a challenge for you. So I have to go through a rough road to do things and research on my own for a lot of things, right? People say learn from your mistakes, but you know what I say? You cannot always learn everything from your mistakes. What I mean is, you don't live longer to make all mistakes in your life, right? So, somewhere, yes, you can make mistakes. I need to let you make your mistakes to learn. I do that to my kids and I let them fail. I let them make mistakes so that they can think. Otherwise, it's going to be, there is a movie you guys know about this. The father keeps telling the son everything. End of the day, the son fails to think, or the son fails to make his own judgment or he doesn't like it. The father thinks he's doing the right thing by helping him. No, you're not. You got to let somebody to take their own decision, but you got to stand next to them to make sure they don't fail or help them to understand, look, there is a warning. If you make this, you might fail. That is what is needed. I remember I had a teacher um, in my college. He said he used to be very strict. We used to kind of say, "Oh, this guy is very, very strict." But he says, "Yes, I'm strict. I'll push you into the water. I'll make you swim, but I'm going to stand in the shore to make sure you don't drown." So that's exactly what I want to do. I don't want to make you guys drown. But you guys have to start doing things on your own. So at some point of time, you need some help to know where I should go towards. At this point of time, I'm sure you guys have a lot of things going in the mind, like what should I choose? What should I do? You're in a, this is like road not taken. I know you might have heard that um, Shakespeare's, road not taken. Which road should I go? You know, I don't know which one should I go. The problem here is once you take a road, you cannot come back. For example, if you choose to be a doctor, and I had friends who want to be doctors, they go have and say, oh, you know what, you went into engineering, you already started earning. I still didn't even finish my course. But he's like, I wish I would have chosen an engineering course. It happens, right? People go. I'm not against any profession. Don't take me wrong. So I had my friend who did his. He's still my friend, and he's back in India. There, he did his. Give me a quick second. Let me pause the video for a second. So we'll come back to the subject. I'll take a 2 minutes break, and we'll come back. So I have a friend who did his course for. I think he did for 5.5 years of his medical. Then he wanted to go into pediatrics for his specialization. So he tried once, he didn't get it. He tried for second year masters in pediatrics, he didn't get it. He got vexed. By the time I'm like 3.5 years into the industry, so we both talk, we meet and talk a lot. So he's like, he was a topper in the class too. So he was like, I should have chosen engineering. I should have already started earning. And finally, he ended up choosing, I think, postgraduate in something else. It was not what he wanted to go into because there's a lot of. I should use a different term now. There's a limited openings for that field. So not a lot of people get in. Like if you have 300 openings for engineering, you only have 70 openings for medical, so you couldn't get there. But finally, he got into post graduation of what he wanted to do. Post graduation, I think postgraduate diploma, not into the masters. So that's a story about that. But what I'm trying to say is once you are in a phase where you have to take some decision. So I really want you to start thinking what is right. There are multiple things you need to bring into factor, not just what you want to alone. Okay, I'll talk tomorrow or certain things about it. But like I said yesterday, decide what you want to do. Your interest is very important. Do you have the interest and capacity and capability? Capabilities always comes in. You can always do it. Like I said, you can is what you can, but you need to see your interest. Sometimes we think we want to do this, but your interest lies somewhere else. All right. So you need to evaluate and go with that. All right. So like I said, my intent here is. Give me a second. Let's get back into the video. Yeah. So my intent here is not only to just teach DBMS, plus give you some interest to give you long-term understanding of where is it used. There's a lot of careers. We'll talk about the roles of DBMS or the people involved in DBMS. I'll talk about DBA a little later. There are a lot of careers that you can build on DBMS. That's the reason why I keep talking so much. I'm very passionate about DBA job, DBA role. DBA is database administrator. They have the complete control. Believe me, it's like like the lockdown that you have now. The DBS can lock down the complete organization, irrespective of how fancy your um, UI looks, the UI user interface looks. The data is the base. The database administrator can lock down the whole organization. This has happened in few places. People, if your administrator doesn't give you an access, you cannot access it, irrespective of whoever you are, right? So there are a lot of careers you can build on database. People have chosen, like for example, I did my DBMS specialization in my master's. I got so passionate about DBMS. My engineering is not on a core DBMS or anything. But when I did my master's in IT, I came in interaction with DBMS, and then I selected a course. I went into specialization on advanced DBMS, and then that's where I still feel want to work in DBA industry. I mean, how the DBA is controlled. So you have a lot of future. Just letting you know, I'm just letting you know that there is a lot of things you can do here. So my intent will be to cover a long-term goal, how DBMS is used, what are the career paths that you have in DBMS, plus your near-term goal, your short-term goal about how to get your 100% marks in DBMS. Sometime later we'll run through your breakup, how much marks for each portion of your DBMS. I want to make sure you are able to, when you walk into the exam hall, I want you to be 100% confident that you can attempt every question in DBMS. I want you to have that confidence and make sure that you address every question. Okay, that's also part of my goal for you, and then do that. Okay, all right, let's keep going. All right, data processing. Let's talk a little bit about data processing cycle. What I mean by data processing cycle, I'm going to do a sharing. I think I'm still sharing, yes. Okay, so we're going to talk about data sharing. Okay. So data processing. What I mean by data processing here is, how is the data processed? What are the different phases it goes through? Okay, so we talked about, for example, telecom industry. What does telecom industry do with your data? They just capture data, but what do they do with it? Okay, it has to be converted to information. So what is that raw data? What does it go through? Okay, that's what we're going to talk about. Number one is data input. Input is the first phase. How is the data fed? It's through keyboard. The first phase, like I said, is data input. How is the data fed? The data is fed via a keyboard or a mouse or any external input device. I'll put it simply like this. This is again another important question for your exams. I've looked at your question paper. There are questions about what are the different stages of data processing cycle, or can you explain data processing cycle? There are 5 different stages the data goes through. Okay, first thing is the data input through external devices. What are the external devices? Keyboard, mouse, scanner, microphone. Microphone is a data input form. If you go into YouTube, Google these days, people are not typing; they're just talking into it. You have voice recognition in place. Your voice recognition that takes your voice. Thanks, Achita, for the response. Yeah, so microphone. People have stopped typing. My kids go just speak. Whatever they want to search for in Google. So they just type and they just speak. So these are the external forms that you feed input. So the data is received into the system. Now what happens? What does the system do with your data? It processes data. Right, Alexa. Yeah, Alexa is voice recognition. See how the world is changing. Tomorrow I want to talk a few minutes about, how things have changed. We'll park that for tomorrow. Siri, yes. All right. So data processing is the next. What do they do with the data processing? This is an advantage plus a scary place. Data processing. You have to be very, very careful. With data processing. I'll talk in two levels. Okay, data processing for an application that I develop. For example, I've written programs that access um, data. Okay, what does it do? I have data in my database. I create tables, data resides, and you write an application program. You guys have to pay attention and understand this. Database is created. The data sits in terms of tables. I showed you a table yesterday. The data sits as table there, right? It cannot do anything on its own. Okay, you got to remember that. It cannot do anything on its own, okay, unless somebody talks to it. Who can talk to the database? It's an application program. What is an application program? It's like C, C++, something like that. You create an application program to talk to your database, to get some data from it, okay? You are telling your application program to say, go to this table, get the data. Once you get the data, can you, for example, let's say you're trying to compute a data, age, okay? You don't have age stored in the database. Generally, you don't store age in database because it's a dynamic data, meaning it keeps changing. Today, if your age is 17, tomorrow it's 18. Next year it's 18, next year it's 19. So all this changing data generally is not stored in the database because there is a whole topic about dynamic data. Okay, so we don't store the data. So now I'm writing an application program to say I need to compute the age of every person. I'm writing a logic to say take current timestamp, subtract it from the date of birth. So basically I should say take current timestamp, take the date of birth, subtract these two, current timestamp minus your date of birth, and compute the age. All right, this is data processing. How do I do this? Using an application program. I write a set of instructions, an operation, an application program to do that, right? You got to understand there's one more layer after application program that's called user interface. User interface is what you see, okay? What you see. So you don't know who is talking to the database. You don't know the logic. For example, you go use your ATMs. When you go withdraw your money, that's your user interface. The ATM is your user interface. You don't know what is application program. It could be a COBOL program. It could be a Java program that's doing this job for you, talking to the database, getting the data. Okay, so this is data processing. So first you input the data. Second is data processing. Data processing is done by an application program, basically a set of instructions. And the next phase is data storage. I process this data. I said, give me the age, or I'm saying, can you give me a list of people who come from Mysore? Okay, it gets the data for me. I need to store the data somewhere. Okay, data storage is important. It could temporarily store the data in the primary memory. Primary memory is your RAM, but you cannot leave it there. You got to take it to some form of secondary storage, electronic or paper format. So electronic format is basically, we talked about what are the different forms of electronic formats, or you put it to a secondary storage or a printed form. Now you store the data primarily in secondary form, let's say, and then you have to print an output, okay? Because there's somebody waiting for you to give you an output. You're asking the ADM, what's my balance? You're waiting for an output. So it has to give you an output. Where does it give the output? On your screen, right? So that's where you get your screen, or you print reports. That's where you get your report on. And then the last thing is about communication. Somebody wants to know, right? For example, I said telecom industry sends you a report. How do they send a report for you? In terms of paper forms. So that's the last one, your communication. How do I communicate? I take this data, print it out, send it home, or I send it via an email. These days it's all electronic forms of statements. So you send an email or letter, or put it on if something has to be published on a website, you publish on a website. Okay, so this is again very important. So if you have questions, feel free to stop me here. This is a very important topic. So there are 5 phases your data goes through in terms of data processing cycle. First, you put the data into the system, then it processes the data, and then it kind of computes the output, prints it for you on the screen, and then sends a report to your home. You might very well remember an example, attach an example to this. Like I said, ATM could be a very good example that will help you to remember. You don't need to memorize this. Never ever try to memorize. Try to understand and do it with a purpose. I keep repeating that, right? All right, assuming you guys are clear on this, I will keep moving. Okay, this is just, I wanted to put it in a mind mapping format if this helps you. You know, I'm sure the mind mapping technique is introduced to you. It's a very good technique. If a lot of times people tell you when you study something, if you don't understand, take the picture, draw a picture and look at it for 5 minutes. And then close your eyes, try to bring that picture back to your mind, you will remember it. So basically it's like a picture, right? Assume, these days we take photograph of everything, right? Rather than writing something, you take a picture, that picture will store in your mind, and going to the exam hall, you don't remember the words or anything that you studied, but just close your eyes, the picture comes into your mind. This is exactly what's, I try to put it in a kind of mind mapping. I'm not an expert of it, but I try using this when I want to put something complex into this format. So you start, actually I should remove this here. It's not feeding into it. So this is the form. So you start from here, input. After the input, it goes into processing, then goes into storing, then goes into output, then into communication. Okay. All right. Keep going. All right. You guys have to let me know if you need to take a break. If you want me to stop, I can keep going. Yes. Give me a quick second. Okay. Is everybody with me? Following so far? Not too boring? Can I get an yes? Cool. I need more people to interact. Okay. It's like I said, if you're not interacting, I'm assuming you're sleeping. Okay. I'm going to have that basic rule. Um, you know, the, 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 the wonderful thing about a lecture, you know what is, it can make you sleep anytime, right? Morning, afternoon, evening, doesn't matter. The lectures can make you sleep easily. That's a very powerful thing, right? Uh, the statistic says people cannot concentrate more than 45 minutes at a stretch straight. That's why if you see all your sessions are usually like 45, 50 minutes. So you cannot concentrate more than that time. What's going on here? So I try my best not to talk continuously so that I give you a break when you're sleeping so you can wake up and go back to sleep. So if you're not responding, then I'm going to assume, okay, people are sleeping and I'm talking to myself, Like I said, I prefer classroom sessions a lot of times, mostly, or at least something very interactive so we can talk to each other and see how you guys are responding. But like I said, in the current situation, we cannot do it. But I'm trying to my best to keep it interactive. So put questions here, try to stop me. It's okay to go slow. Don't feel bad if it's slow or if it's like too many sessions. The essence is you need to understand, you need to register it. If you wake me in the middle of this night and ask me to talk about DBMS or any subject, and it's not only DBMS, there are multiple subjects I am fond of. I can talk, middle of the night, somebody asks me, I can talk. That is because it's not in my mind, it's in my blood, I say. People ask me, how is that? You can always say this. I always tell them, when I studied, I put it in my blood. So it always goes into my blood. So that is what I'm trying to do for you. You need to put it, imbibe it into your body. So there's an advantage. And somebody says, can you speak something for 2 minutes? You have a subject to choose, right? So good. Okay. So I assume some people are not sleeping. I got like 5, 6 responses. So at least 7, 8 people are not sleeping. Good. How many people we have here now? About 13 people. Nice. All right. Let's, I don't know, where is this lines coming from? Well, okay. Let's, Yes. Okay. So I'm going to get back. All right. Now I'm going to talk about DBMS. So far we have been talking about um, database, right? Database and base and a base. Now I'm slowly shifting towards database management system. What is this new terminology now? Again, this is another question. I think it's a 2 more question, whatever. What is DBMS? Define DBMS. Okay. Remember the thumb rule I taught you yesterday? It applies to anything. Okay. If you don't know what it is, just write it in the reverse. DBMS is nothing but a system that manages database. Excuse me. Database management system, right? If you read it reverse, it's a system that manages a base of data or a database, right? So what is that system? That's nothing but a software system, okay? So your definition has to be, it's a software system that manages database, okay? Now the next question comes, what do you mean manage? Manage is a broad term. A lot of people like to use the term manager. What is it manager? You know, I don't know where are these lines coming into my, do you guys see the lines? I see some lines coming into the document. Where is that coming from? I'm not a.
So you can stop the annotation. Maybe by mistake, some students are, they
Okay.
touch the screen, it's coming up maybe.
Okay, so let me try to stop. I think I did. Okay, and you guys can still hear me, right? Yep. Okay. Okay. All right, let's keep going. I'm not losing anybody, right? Okay. DBMS. So now your definition changes slightly to DBMS is nothing but a system that manages, software system that manages database. Again, the next question is what is manage? Manage is a broad term. So what all is being managed? You can create a table, basically to put your data. I told you, you put your data there. So put your data, you need to first create a table or a database, and then you have to insert the data. It's basically going through the processing cycle. Okay, you create the data, you insert the data, you can modify. When I mean modify, it's update or delete, and drop basically means you're dropping the whole table, and then you alter the structure of the table. We'll talk in detail about the next chapter about each of these. Okay, so these are what is being done as part of management. So if you have to define or write an example or write an definition for DBMS, you can very well say DBMS is nothing but a software system that can create and manipulate or delete a data on the database. Okay, I use the term manipulate. It's a broad term for manipulate. Manipulate means you can modify, update, delete, etc. Okay, cool. All right. Yes. So going on. So I just want to introduce the 5W1H rule here. I'm sure you're using this in all your most of your techniques. I find it very powerful as well. We try to use that. It gives you an answer. So quickly before we finish, I'm gonna ask you guys to give me an answer. Give me an answer. Give me a second. I'm gonna mute all. Give me an answer to these questions, and then we should be done with it. So most of these, I think we have gone through. Maybe not all, but some of it. So what is DBMS? We have gone through it. I just gave you a quick explanation about what is DBMS. Let's look at what is it. So if you have to define, you can define it: collection of related data organized in rows and columns as tables. Okay. So this could be our definition. So database is basically a collection of related data organized in rows and columns, and then the system that manages the database is your DBMS. And then your next question is going to be, Actually, I should slightly change it here. The software system that manages, okay? Because collection of data is only a database. So I should say software system that manages collection of related data organized in rows and columns. Rows and columns you know, but we can talk tomorrow in detail. Okay, next question is, why is DBMS used? Okay, why do we use it? Because you just talk about the advantages of DBMS here. Okay, we talked a little bit about the manual versus the computerized form. We talked about certain advantages. We'll talk a little bit more on this as well as we go down some of the advantages. Um, and where is DBMS used? I want you to ask that next question. We talked about that a little bit. I talked about what are the applications of DBMS. I told you a story. Remember the story, don't forget it. It's an important question about the applications of database. Okay, telecom industry, your electric, your water, your college, banking, etc., etc., etc. So when do we use DBMS? We talked about the differences. I told you there's a win-win. You cannot just go build a DBMS for a petty shop. Okay, he cannot have the money, and it's not worth building it. Okay, so when is it used? When there is a benefit of doing it, when there's large volume of data involved. Remember the term, large volume of data. Okay, banking, stock markets, there is large volume of data. That is where your DBMS is used. And who uses it? It's a very important question. That's a separate topic I want to talk. I'll do that as we go down the line. Who are the users of DBMS? Multiple people, multiple levels. Okay. I think I have a hand raised. Appreciate that. Kirti has a question. Go ahead, Kirti. I think you can unmute yourself. Go ahead and ask me a question. Is there a question? Or is it?
No, I think, yeah, by mistake, yes,
Okay,
pressed
that's
Kirtish.
fine.
Okay,
No
you can
problem. That's okay. All right, and then so we'll talk about the users of database shortly. And how is it used? So then another question comes into how is the database used? Okay, that is the other question. This is the other topic I will discuss a little later. Um, this might sound Greek and Latin if you're not aware of it. DDL, DML, they all have an expansion. DDL stands for data definition language, data manipulation language, data control, and data query language. So I'll talk in detail. So, but I just want you to remember this. We have an answers to all these questions. Some of it you already discussed, and some of it we will discuss as we go down the line. I good bedrooms, true. Yep. All right. Anything else? Anybody has questions? Are we good for today? Did you guys take away things? We talked about the different items, the uh, data processing cycle, and I'll quickly finish off and close the video here. So I think we should be good. Yeah. So for today, we just went quickly through the applications of database. I kind of took you guys through the applications, and then we talked about the different processing cycles. We talked about what is data versus information. Um, I think, give me one quick second. I think I wanted to close this. All right, I'm back here on. Okay, so just quickly to wind up the topics that we went through today. Number one, we talked about the applications of database. Remember the story I said? You wake up, what all you do until you get in the job. Okay, remember that story? You might have questions about the applications of database. So we talked about the applications. We talked about data versus information. We talked about the evolution of database. How manual versus computerized forms of data storage. And then we went into the data processing cycle. What are the different stages of data processing? And then we talked about what is DBMS. And then we talked about 5W1H of DBMS. All right, I think those are the items that we covered today. Tomorrow we slowly get in depth a little bit more concepts. And then couple more sessions we go about the concepts. Concepts are always the basis. Once we are done with the concepts, we'll go into the actual design or creating databases. or tables. Okay. With that, I'll close for today. Thanks everyone for your time. Thanks for your time here today. Bye. See you. See you in the next session. I I still have yeah, the chat's open. All right. Thank you everybody. Yeah. Thank you for your responses. I appreciate it. Have a good evening. Bye bye.